distributed the same way that you get all your other pharmaceuticals, by going to Walgreens and dealing with a pharmacist and going through, traditional regulated medical channels. That would be the best for everybody. But what we're doing when we have these medical marijuana laws is trying to create a reasonable corollary to that system. And unfortunately, there are many states that don't have the ballot initiative process. It's exceptionally difficult to pass these types of medical marijuana laws through state legislatures. In fact, there's only one state of the 14 medical marijuana states that have enacted medical marijuana through their state legislature, and that's New Jersey. And I think Maine is very seriously considering doing that as well. I mean, it didn't quite get through, got vetoed at the last minute by the governor in the last legislative session. So it's very difficult to pass these through the legislature, and most eastern and southern states that don't have a ballot initiative process. That was a reform that came out as part of the progressive era in the late 19th century. And states that had statehood before that typically don't have initiative, referendum, and recall provisions in their state constitutions, and Western states do. So that's why most of the medical marijuana states are in the West, is because it took citizens' ballot initiatives in order to enact those laws. And in places that don't have the ballot initiative, it's going to be very difficult for them to get medical marijuana laws. I mean, even places that are fairly progressive states like Illinois and New York are having, because of just political issues, having difficulties getting their medical marijuana laws passed through the legislature. These bills, even though they have a lot of support, have had a difficult time getting the necessary votes for passage in the last few legislative sessions.
What do you see the future being? I mean, I got into the head shop business, paraphernalia industry, 40 years ago, and I really believed when I helped start High Times that it was going to become legal pretty soon. But that's never happened. What do you see? Do you see a future here? Are we going to continue being this drug state, where you can get arrested for whatever you've got in your pocket? I mean, to me, that just seems to be that's tyranny. That's there's nothing else but tyranny. Ayn Rand said, government has no control over honest citizens, so they got to make criminals out of us.
Oh, excuse me. I think that opinions are revolving on marijuana generally, and we're starting to have a reasonable, informed debate about marijuana policy, and only good things can come of that. Unfortunately, in this country and in most countries, and part of democracy is that change is sometimes painfully slow, and it takes a long time for legitimate, even very legitimate political issues to gain traction. I think that you can look at something like the repeal of alcohol prohibition took a very long time. The civil rights movement took a very long time to gain momentum, and even when there's a very clear issue of public policy and that we can make a positive change in the right direction, sometimes it takes a long time for that momentum to build for that type of change. And it's starting to happen. And I think we're having an informed debate, or we're starting to for the first time. I've noticed a change even since the beginning of this campaign. Back in early 2009 when I started working on this campaign, pretty much every news story that you saw that was about marijuana was flipped. It includes some sort of pun in the headline, like High Times for marijuana users, or Up in Smoke, the Arizona's medical marijuana bill. Some sort of joke. It was considered something funny, something that was kind of a sideshow. And that's not true anymore. This is being treated as a very serious issue, and something that has broad public policy implications. And once you start debating it in that way, the folks who, particularly in medical marijuana, who want to see these laws changed, have a lot of, folks like us. We have strong facts on our side. We have a very strong argument to make. And when you start talking about on the facts, changes to marijuana policies start making a whole lot of sense.
Are you getting a different following? I mean, are lawyers, judges, doctors starting to join into the discussion? You know, I'm a product of the '60s, so you know. Of course, you know, a lot of us long-haired hippie biker types got the Vietnam War stopped, so I think we did have an influence. But you know, when I started riding a Harley too, you know, you could almost get arrested for wearing leather, and now the doctors and lawyers got more Harleys than we do. So,
right. No, I think that's a good example of, you know, how societal norms are changing, and, you know, things that were once considered counterculture are becoming mainstream. And yeah, we have many doctors, we have many attorneys. You know, we have many people involved in the legal profession in other ways who are very supportive of this initiative, because they have a reasonable understanding of the issue. You know, the reefer madness style propaganda that our opponents like to spout, it doesn't have a welcoming audience anymore. I mean, people want to be able to talk about this on the facts. They want to know what the research says. And when you start talking about the facts and start talking about the research, it's very hard not to vote yes on medical marijuana programs. And, you know, we have a lot of thinking people, including professionals, you know, from the professional occupations like, you know, the law and medicine, that are very supportive of this issue. And in fact, I would venture to guess that we have the majority support when it comes to election day from the medical community.
Now, do you have other employment? Do you have another job, or do you devote your full time to this project?
This is my full-time job right now. I'm the campaign manager for Proposition 203. That's my job.
Okay. What what do you do if you win?
Well, you know, that's the nature of working for political issues, and that's been my reality my entire career, is that when you work in politics, ultimately you're working to put yourself out of a job. You know, you want to solve the problem, and, you know, nothing would make me happier than put myself out of work on November 2nd.
I was involved in the presidential race in 1996, and I asked a presidential candidate the same thing. What do you do after you lose? You know, if you lose, what happens? What do you do now? Are there other issues that interest you personally that you would get involved in to build upon the support that you've already got? And you know, if one of the reasons that I do this radio show, certainly not for the money, but I do this radio show because I think people need to be informed. I think knowledge is our best weapon here. And you made reference to the reefer madness type of that was propaganda. That was propaganda put out by William Randolph Hearst, DuPont, Mellon, and Standard Oil. You know, the
that was, you know, that's a good history lesson. A large part of the campaign against marijuana when it was criminalized in, I believe, 1937, was the campaign against hemp. And, you know, hemp was a very strong competitor to paper in the industrial sector.
That's right.
And, you know, it's a more durable fiber, and it's cheaper to produce. And you don't have to cut forests in order to provide it. So, yeah, it would have been a very strong, I mean, several of our founding documents were printed on hemp paper.
Yeah,
so,
Encyclopedia Britannica, you know, for 100 years was printed on hemp paper.
Yeah. And so, I mean, there is a very interesting history of this. You know, the representative of the AMA, when they criminalized marijuana for medical use, the American Medical Association testified against that legislation. Marijuana was cannabis was a very prominent part of medical practice up until the time it was prohibited for treating a wide variety of conditions. And there were very serious alternative political reasons why marijuana and hemp were criminalized.